Starting this week, we are going to be using stock photography, and if you're not familiar with what that is, that's what I'm going to touch on in this video. Now, pond5.com is a great stock website, and they have not only photos, but also video, audio, even illustrations, and more, and they've graciously given us a set of stock photos that we are going to be using in this course. So I'll be using them in my lessons, and then you're going to have your own set of stock photography that you can use in the exercises. Now, these photos are only for use in this course. You can't use them in outside projects, but if you want to share any of the projects that you make in this course online, that's fine. You just need to give them credit by saying images courtesy of pond5.com, and you can put that in the description of the post, or if it's on your portfolio, just on the page that that work is contained in. Now, what exactly is stock photography? Well, it's basically photos that professionals have taken of basically any object you can think of that you can pay for and use in your projects. Now, different stock photography websites have different licenses for their photos. Some of them have restrictions on how many times that photo can be seen or used in a project. So it's very important that you understand how those licenses work and where to find that information, because you can't just grab photos from anywhere and expect to be able to use them as much as you want forever, because not every stock photography license is identical. Now, regardless of what stock website you're purchasing images from, they will have a license, so you just need to make sure that you read it thoroughly and you understand how it limits your use of that photo. Some websites are more restrictive than others. Some have absolutely no restrictions. You pay once and then you can use it forever however you like. And the purpose of these stock photos is so that you can use assets that you didn't have to create yourself in a way that helps your project, because not everybody has time to go shoot photos of bubbles blowing in the wind or isolated fruit on white backgrounds. Being able to just search a library of photos that have already been professionally shot saves you a lot of time, and generally the quality of them is much better than what you could do on your own anyway. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I just use Google Images, why can't we just pull images from anywhere? It's because we don't own the rights to every image on Google Images. That's just a search engine that's scouring the internet for photos, and there are ways to look at photos that have licenses that allow you to use those photos through Google Images. But the problem with that is it's not very reliable, because anyone can upload an image and claim that it's theirs and say that, you know, I'm releasing this under the Creative Commons license, that anyone can use this photo for whatever they want, no strings attached, no attribution required, which sounds great, but the problem with the internet is people lie, steal, and cheat on the internet, and there's no way of knowing that they are actually the original author of those photos. And that's why Google Images is not a good place to go looking for photos. There is one caveat though. If you're not using these photos in your final artwork and you're not trying to pass them off as your own, then for reference images, for things like style frames, which you're going to learn a little bit more about in a bonus lesson coming up, that is something that you can use found images for, but you would never present something that you just ripped off of the internet to a client and pretend or kind of insinuate that that was your work. You'd make it very clear that this is reference imagery. It's not something you created, it's just something that you're using as inspiration. So if you're ever looking for images and you find one that you really want to use, but there's any kind of hesitation as to whether or not it's appropriate for you to use that image, chances are it's not okay. Don't do it. If you feel like it might be a bad idea to use somebody's image that you're not certain is something that you're allowed to, just don't do it. You can always reach out to the person who hosted the image. Maybe you went to Flickr or another photo website like that where people are posting their images, and you could ask that photographer directly, whoever owns that image, if you could use that photo. But a lot of times the photographer or whoever owns the rights to that photo will require that you give the author attribution. And in most cases that's not possible, especially with motion design. So chances are you're not going to want to go to websites that require that kind of attribution. Stick to stock photography sites. Yes, they do cost money, but they free you up from any kind of legal issues. Now, there is one website that I'd like to show you which actually does allow you to use anything on it for whatever use you want, no restrictions whatsoever, and it's called Unsplash. So this is the website right here. It's called unsplash.com. And it's full of really nice looking photos. So you can just browse whatever's in this list, and this is updated all the time. These are all user submitted photos, and the photographers themselves are submitting it here fully understanding that these photos are going to be accessible to anyone that wants to use them. No attribution required whatsoever. But let's say I just want to search for something like fruit, and I type that in, and there we go. We've got photos of fruit. There's a banana on a yellow background. We've got some apples, some cherries, pineapple. So there's lots of variety here, and like I said, this is growing. It's a growing library. All the time, new photos are added. The thing with this website is that it's not very specific. If you went to a stock photography website and typed in banana, you would probably find 5,000 bananas shot in 5,000 different angles, mostly on white backgrounds, so that you could easily cut them out. This photo is perfectly acceptable of a banana. You could cut that out from the background, no problem, but you can tell this was stylized. It was put on a yellow background. This peach is on a pink background. There's nothing wrong with these things, but you just have to understand this website is not going to provide you with all of your photo asset needs. If you need something like a watermelon background, there you go, or blueberries in the background, you've got it. And you can use these photos however you want, and you can even come right down here, go to the do whatever you want license, and this is where it's going to explain the license and how you are free to do with whatever you want with these photos, so long as you're not putting them in another collection, hosting them on another website, trying to sell them or something like that. They belong here on Unsplash, but they are free to use for anyone. And another really nice thing about Unsplash is that it does keep the information about the original photographer. So if I were to try and download this, it's going to give me this little pop-up that says crediting isn't required, but it is appreciated and allows photographers to gain exposure. And they even make it really easy. You can just copy the credit badge for that photographer so that you can post that wherever you use this photo. So it's just a very good practice. It's a great courtesy to the photographer who is willing to give up their work for free for you to use. So just give credit where credit is due in any scenario that you can. One last thing on licenses for stock photos is that a lot of times you'll see something for commercial use and something for personal use, and those are kind of self-explanatory. You can sometimes find images that are free for personal use, but if you want to use it commercially, in other words, trying to make money, or it's for a client, then it is not free, or you have to pay a different fee for that license. So this is kind of where you need to just be a good person and do not try to use something that says it's for personal use only in a commercial work. There are people who will take legal action if they find your work without a proper license in a final end result. So just like I said, be a good person, follow the rules, and get the proper license to the assets that you use. Now, you're not going to need to worry about any of that licensing with this course, but if you start looking at stock photo websites, now you have a little bit of an understanding of what to expect.